I've just been creating resources for my forthcoming program, The Maiden to the Queen, which is all about helping women to embody the full force of their feminine power by really integrating the different feminine archetypes that we all possess, that if out of alignment or out of balance, we find ourselves operating out of integrity. We find ourselves not in our wholeness. We find ourselves out of congruence. And it shows up in many, many ways. But this is not the video for me to go into the depth of that right now. I have just created an EFT tapping script that I want to share with you, which is directly linked to the relationship between the father wounds and our money wounds, our survival patternings relating to internalized beliefs that we took on as children when our father figure or the masculine figure was not in a position to nurture and care and provide that structure and safety for us in the way that we would need to be safe, secure, and at ease on a nervous system level and an emotional level with provision. With provision from the actual masculine in the 3D realm and provision from the everything that the masculine symbolizes. So the father, our fathers are really the symbols and the blueprint for the relationships that we attract later in life and our adult and the relationships that we form, the patterns that we hold in those relationships, what were modeled to us in our families of origin, and or what wasn't. If your father was domineering, controlling, or if he was powerless and inconsistent and not able to provide, both of these spectrums of behaviors are going to have a really powerful impact on how you create financial resources and the ways that you create them and how you might attract them in your life now. So this year, some of you may know because I will be doing a deep podcast series on this. And actually out of it, and this is why I love gratitude, out of the mirror that was presented to me this year, when in November, after 5 years of celibacy, I declared to the universe that I finally wanted to experience love and safe, emotional, intimate partnership. I wanted divine union. I wanted a monogamous, emotionally safe, conscious partnership where I could grow, evolve, be loved, be held, be supported, be cherished, be chosen by a man I would be proud to be with, and who had the capacity to do that with me. Um, this is really interesting because it's connected deeply to my SQ sphere in my gene keys, where actually I was drawn and deeply into the Venus sequence, where I was forced to confront all of the ways that I had been dishonest in my life when it came to intimacy and partnership, and all the ways that I had actually, throughout my life, looking back at my whole relational history with intimate partnerships, because actually, very interestingly, my relationship with the masculine isn't all fractured. It isn't all bad. I have huge abundance, huge provision by men who were not my intimate partners. I've had men support me, men provide that emotional connection, men provide everything that I needed from platonic relationship, but never from the men that I selected or were attracted to, which then this year finally showed me and has actually helped me to channel this wisdom that I am going to bring through for the feminine when it comes to relationship, when it comes to money, when it comes to our businesses. Um, I had to suddenly confront the fact that everything that was happening in my life was be in terms of my money relationships, my patterning around money, my um how my intimate partnerships mirrored some of the core patterns that were keeping me at a plateau in my business, in my visibility, and in my wealth. And um, what's great is because I work with a lot of spirit animals as well. I have a very strong relationship with animal archetypes, which work with me deeply, which come to me and guide me. And one of them said, uh, yeah, they said it, what looks like, something really like what looks like something bad, not in these words, is actually the greatest gift. Like w- it's what seems like um what seems like problematic or an obstacle or whatever in your life right now is actually the thing that's going to free you. And I know it sounds cliche, and I'm not even saying it right because I wasn't thinking about it, but I'll find it and I'll share it because it was deeper than that. But anyway, so what happened when I made that declaration was three men, three significant figures, male figures from my past showed up. And back in 2018, when I had my first spiritual awakening, it was on partly on the back of a string of abusive relationships that was just like one after the other. And a, um, it wasn't, this was a consistent pattern throughout my life. There had been relationships that were not deeply as abusive as these particular ones, but my first ever intimate partner was deeply abusive, physically, emotionally, sexually. Um, and I escaped that experience by by being saved, ultimately, wounded maiden, by a masculine man who I ended up spending 9 years with, which were okay, but that's a whole nother story. Um, and then slipping back over time, no matter how successful I was, how much I led schools, how much I, educated myself and moved out of where I grew up, these old abusive relationship patterns would keep showing up. And it was only in 2018, the final time when my soul had the dark night of the soul, and it kind of propelled me into, I need to look at trauma bonding. I need to look at why do I keep repeating these patterns? Why have I never been loved by, and so the realizations, the awakening, the questions awakened me to my path. And what I now know, and we all of you watching probably know, is that where are the people that we are attracting is resting in our nervous system, and it's resting in those survival internalized beliefs and the energy that we are familiar with. And I came up with this thing the other day. I noticed familiar, family, liar. What was modeled to us, what we internalized, what we experienced from our inconsistent caregiving, from the patterns of emotionally dysregulated parenting and how that shows up where mirrors our relationships. Um, isn't it interesting how the word familiar actually breaks down into family and liar? Because these are lies. They're not true. They're not true to who you are. They're not what love is. And so all of us on that path who are creating these new ways of relating, creating new models of conscious partnership, building wholeness and health in our lives, um, we are breaking those curses, we are breaking those lies and creating truths as we recode our identities. So, anyway, three men turned up and they were very, very clear mirrors to me. Now, the one who was really abusive, um, because at that time I was running a program which led me to tolerate and have a high level of tolerance for something that was familiar to me, the chaos of domestic violence. And I grew up in that world. And yeah, I had a pattern of tolerant high levels of tolerance for mistreatment. And I soon found out about this was back in 2018 about trauma bonding, and I did my work. And anyway, so when this guy turned up, what was great was actually when we spoke on Zoom, and because it was 6 or 7 years, 7 years, a 7 year completion. This is a completion year. And what was beautiful was my levels of power. This person, the frequency, this guy came back to show me that that had been completely wound out of my system. He wasn't a frequency match. He wasn't a vibrational match anymore. Like he wasn't going to be able to get in. We closed our chapter. We closed our karmic loop. Um, there was a different level of communication. And so that was that. But two other men showed up, and both of them I had the pattern of unrequited love with. And both of them, I had the pattern. Well, no, one particularly was one that we had a very beautiful, amazing sexual relationship, but it was never, ever beyond that. And I'm not, again, going to go into the whole stories of these things because I want to break down these stories in the podcast and in my program, The Maiden to the Queen. But the reason I'm saying this is because the final one was the guy I fell in love with when I was 30. And this and I got to see for the first time in my life at this stage what he was mirroring to me about the beliefs that I was holding and the patterns that needed to be released and cleared and unwound, and the identity that I needed to create in order for me to really truly step into more personal power, deeper levels of self-love and self-worth, and recode what is now safe and not familiar to me anymore. Um, but one of the biggest gifts he's given me was for me to see the relationship between those survival patternings and money. Now, one of the things that I have experienced over the last 7 years of this awakening journey, I have been amazing. I have overcome in many ways my old way of not receiving. I've become the receiving queen. But when it comes to specifically money, there is a pattern of feast and famine. And what I've decoded, 8 months of deep internal work, channeling, etc., is the relationship between the father and the money. So in this EFT, I want to share this EFT with you. So one of the things that I've had in my life, and it may be the same for you, is masculine energy. So the belief, deep unconscious belief that masculine energy is dangerous, unpredictable, or unavailable. So I grew up with a very violent stepfather. So he's actually a sociopath. So that there was unpredictability, there was violence, there was sexual trauma, there was so many things going on there. And that was what I was raised with. And my own father was a very powerless figure, addicted to substances, took no responsibility, was unable to provide. And there was so many beliefs around, and this is why I've always attracted men that were not able to provide, that were emotionally unavailable, that were emotionally distant, were inconsistent, were hot and cold, because I had a deep internal belief that the masculine couldn't provide. Now, again, some of you know me, you know my work from the last few years. You've known that I've moved from type A, high achieving, workaholic, burning out to a woman who is aligned with my design, living in feminine frequency, living in flow over force, which again is the biggest, big work that I'm here to teach because in my Gene Keys, it's Gene Key 40, which is my vocation sphere. And your vocation sphere is your biggest talent. It's your core wound and your biggest talent. So over time, those thematics are going to play out for you to rise into your biggest power. Um, so we're going to work on this one particular belief in this session, which is around, and so if your own father was inconsistent, if you have a belief around the men masculine not being able to provide, even if you might be in a safe relationship right now, because I've had safe relationships with men, if your money is telling you and mirroring a story here of feast and famine, this is the work. So the new pattern that we are going to recode is that the masculine energy is safe, steady, and supportive because masculine energy represents money. Money is masculine. So as always, tap as I tap and repeat as I speak. Even though a part of me learned that masculine energy is dangerous, unpredictable, or just not there when I needed it, I deeply love, honor, and accept this part of me. Even though my nervous system has been wired to expect inconsistency, chaos, or abandonment from masculine presence, I honor this old protective pattern and I choose to open to new experience of support, presence, and safety. Even though I've internalized this fear as truth, I now allow my system to gently update, to create safety within me first. Even though a part of me learned that masculine energy is dangerous, unpredictable, or just not there when I needed it, I deeply love, honor, and accept this part of me. Even though my nervous system has been wired to expect inconsistency, chaos, or abandonment from masculine presence, I honor this old protective pattern, and I choose to open up to a new experience of support, presence, and safety. Even though I've internalized this fear as truth, and now allow my system to gently update to create safety within me first. Even though a part of me learned that masculine energy is dangerous, unpredictable, or just not there when I need it, I deeply love, honor, and accept this part of me. Even though my nervous system has been wired to expect inconsistency, chaos, or abandonment from masculine presence, I honor this old protective pattern. And I choose to open up to a new experience of support, presence, and safety. Even though I've internalized this fear as truth, I now allow my nervous system to gently update to create safety within me first. This deep imprint of fear around masculine energy, the danger, the unpredictability, the emotional abandonment. My body remembers what my mind tries to forget. Times when I was left, shamed, judged, or neglected. Times when I wasn't protected or chosen. And so my nervous system decided masculine energy wasn't safe. This protective pattern has been with me for a long time. But I no longer need to carry this belief as my truth. This belief has been here to keep me safe from more pain, from repeating the past. I honor the younger part of me who had to survive. who learned to brace for impact or expect nothing at all. It wasn't my fault, but I've carried the burden of masculine absence for too long. And now I choose to lay it down. It's safe to release this outdated wiring now. What if masculine energy could be steady? What if I could feel safe, warm, and protective? I allow the masculine within me to show up differently now. Strong, stable, grounded, trustworthy. I call in a new pattern now, one of secure support. My nervous system is allowed to rest in this new reality. Masculine energy is no longer dangerous. Masculine energy is grounded, present, and deeply safe. I now choose to believe that I can trust again. That presence and devotion are real possibilities. That I am safe to receive loving masculine energy. That I am worthy of being protected, honored, and chosen. I open to the masculine from a new frequency. A frequency of safety, wholeness, and secure love. I am safe in my body. I am safe with the masculine. I now hold the template of secure masculine love within me. I am safe in my body. I am safe to trust the masculine. Masculine energy is now grounded, trustworthy, and divine, and a divine presence in my life. I attract and embody stability, devotion, and protection. So take a deep breath, drink some water. And so some of the ways these patterns show up, it is the hyper independence, it's the over masculine drive, the workaholism, the pushing, or the procrastination and not doing anything because part of that inconsistency is mirroring that weak masculine within yourself. So it's about investigating and really having a look at how this is how this energy is showing up and how we are able to protect and provide for ourselves. Ugh. How we can create that alignment, which is exactly the deep kind of work that we're going to do in the Maiden to the Queen. Because, on one hand, we need to have that huntress energy and that ability to have that structure, to have that stability, so that our feminine, our inner feminine can be supported and safe, and live in overflow and provision. And as we come into that internal wholeness from within, it gives us a really powerful foundation for building those interpersonal relationships or intimate partnerships with men who are provider energy, protector energy, emotionally safe and stable,